bottom line for me, especially after watching last year and considering the moves that were made in the offseason, the fact that the Celtics are sitting there right now as the championship favorites today, no more moves, don't have to do a single thing. You are at the top, at least with regard to what your expectations are. To me, depth is extraordinarily important. It's extraordinarily important over the course of a grueling NBA season and an even tougher couple-month playoff season if you're fortunate enough to go on it. And while I agree, if you add Kevin Durant, you subtract Jaylen Brown, and there's no debate that one is better than the other right now, regardless of what they're going to look like in a few years. Right now, there's no debate as to who is better than the other. You would get a little more top-heavy than you are presently, for sure. But I can't help but look at that and say, Rob, Marcus, Brogdon, Durant, Horford with age, maybe there are serious injury risks on this roster to where your depth could disappear in a blink. And yes, if you don't make a move, that's still the case for sure. But if you don't make a move, at least you got a little more to work with than you would trading away multiple players, multiple rotation players for Kevin Durant, and sacrificing depth, potentially a lot of it, potentially multiple starters, to get only marginally better in my eyes anyway. Maybe some people disagree and think you'd be substantially better, but to me, only marginally better. I just don't think it's worth it. That's ultimately, that is the bottom line for me, Ian. That's where I land.
And I agree with you. If they have to give up too much, even in terms of depth, then they shouldn't do it. If it's true that they're operating from a position of strength where they think that Jaylen's going to stay on, even after all this talk. But that's why the gamesmanship is going to be a big part of it. And letting the Nets come to you when they're at the end of their rope, and the Nets are saying, okay, what's the best way we can save face and move forward? We can say we're starting, we know this thing collapsed, but look what we're getting out of it. Two guys approaching their peak in Jaylen and Simmons. We're trading Kyrie for Russell Westbrook and a draft pick. And he's going to fit right in with the energy that we're bringing in. And Jaylen's a growing star, and we feel very confident that he's going to want to stay in the New York area and fulfill his stardom here for the long haul. So we're not worrying so much about losing him the way we've lost these other guys. So we tried it that way, and now we're trying this way. And think about when we made the trade with Boston all those years ago. If you would have told us that we would have come out of it with Ben Simmons and Jaylen Brown, we would have said, fantastic, that's great. So they can make that trade and bring in Jaylen Brown and at least tell that story. I don't know how much people will believe it, but it's a good story for them to tell. And they can say, our two players are better than the next best two players. And they can make that case too.
The question then is, what is too much? Like, let's just boil it down to that. I sense that you believe Brown and Smart and picks too much. Maybe yeah. So if the latest thing that Himmelsbach wrote, if it's Brown and Brown and White and 4 or 5 combination of picks and pick swaps, is that appropriate, or is that still too much?
That's not too much. But I don't know. That's where you don't know if the Nets would go for that. And that's where this whole question of what's Durant's play going to be in all of this. And he already sent a signal that he's going to be big on it. He's going to be pushing. And so if it's the Celtics against the Nets for Kevin Durant, that's a tough one. But if it's the Celtics and Kevin Durant versus the Nets, and Kevin's behaving in a way that helps ensure that he has the most possible talent waiting for him in Boston when he's traded there. That's this whole idea of gamesmanship, and the Celtics have to be willing to say no, and they walk away.